Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/AmItheA, where we will see an excellent example of why reconciliation with a cheater almost never works. Let's begin. Am I the asshole for keeping my wife on a short leash after she cheated on me?
My wife of 5 years cheated on me last year with her friend when she was out with her friend group. She used to this often, but always came back at around 12 midnight. But this time she came home very late, at around 5 a.m., drunk, and I didn't press the issue that night. She was distant and didn't talk much to me afterwards the next few days. I only found out a couple days later when she confessed to cheating after I kept asking her why she was so cold to me. I was shocked. I never liked the fact that she went out to bars and clubs, but she never gave me a reason to distrust her until that night. I immediately grabbed a bag, packed some stuff and left. She was begging me to talk about it, but I wasn't in the mood for it. I was angry, upset, sad. I know that I wasn't in the right headspace for this kind of talk, so I stayed with a friend. Fast forward a few days later and I agreed to talk to her. She said she was so sorry and would never happen again, and that she would do anything to make me stay. I spent the time I was away thinking of staying or leaving. I hate the fact that I still love her. We don't have kids together, but part of me still wanted to stay. I gave her certain conditions if she wanted me to stay. The first one is to never see the man she cheated on me with ever again. The second was that I could see her phone or computer anytime I wanted without having to ask. The last one was that she could no longer go out to bars or clubs without me. She agreed to all of this. Over the last year, she's been estranged from her friend group because she can't go out with them without seeing the man she cheated on me with, and she hasn't really made any new friends. I haven't checked her phone or computer either. I know she likes to go out, so I try my best to go with her when I have time. The bar and club scene was never my thing, but I try to enjoy it with her. Things haven't been the same as before, and I've thought losing the she can't go out without me rule, but I keep thinking of what she did. I've explained this to my friend, and she said I should just divorce her if I can't trust her anymore. I've thought about it. I wasn't as happy as I used to be. She says she's happy with me around, but she isn't as energetic as she used to be. So, am I the asshole? Now for OP's first update. Thank you all for responding. It was a little overwhelming how much attention this post got. To clarify some things that were asked, our relationship before seemed pretty good. I was never the club and bar kind of person, but me and my wife enjoyed going out to different places. We were both very outdoorsy. We often camping, climbing, hiking, among a lot of other things. We also liked taking trips around the country and sometimes abroad. We also had date nights once or twice a week. We both work from home, so we often had a good amount of free time. We aren't rich or anything, but we do okay. Also, to clarify something, we don't have kids and we don't want kids. When it came to our sex life, I think it was decent. We had sex 3 to 4 times a week and often tried new things, never with another person though. The only thing we didn't share was her habit of going out to bars and clubs. And now to her friends. Some of you were under the impression I told her to see none of her friends. I only told her to stop seeing the man she cheated with. At first, I didn't know exactly why she became estranged with the whole group. They were all part of the friend group. I met all of her friends, including the man in question. From what I know about him, he was a man whore. Nothing happened between him and my wife before, but I never liked the fact she went out so often with this guy, even if it was in a group setting, especially with alcohol involved. I did bring this up to her, and she told me there was nothing to worry about and that this was just insecurity talking. Our relationship now, we've gone out hiking a few times and gone out together on dates, but not nearly as often anymore. I just haven't felt the desire to. Our sex life is pretty barren as well. She's tried to initiate plenty of times, but I rarely want to. The update, I've talked to my wife, and we both reflected on our relationship. She still claims she wants to stay with me and would respect my conditions no matter what. I asked her what she would do if I let go of the conditions. She told me she's truly ashamed of what happened, and she said she probably wouldn't go to a club or bar alone anymore. I asked about her old friends, and she told me that she doesn't want to be their friend anymore. She told me that they thought she was being unreasonable for not wanting to see the guy anymore, and that's just how he is. Basically, they refused to cut the guy off, and they didn't like that my wife had a problem with him. I never asked her about this before because I didn't care about how my condition was met. All that I cared about was that it was met. I've opened up a bit more and how our life now is pretty dull. She said she's aware our relationship isn't the way it was before. I asked her if she wants things to change, but she said she doesn't feel that she has the right to ask me for anything. She said she's aware it's her fault our relationship is like this. I mentioned couples therapy, and she immediately said that it was a good idea. I still resent her, but from what I can tell, she does want to make this work. I can't fully trust her yet. I still remember when she first said that there was nothing to worry about. We decided to start couples therapy. I'll be honest though, the only reason I'm willing to do this is because she has followed my conditions for a year, but I don't think this is going to help me trust her ever again. If therapy doesn't work, then I'll leave. And now, for OP's second update. It's been a while since my last update, and lots of things happened since. Me and my wife have been in therapy for the past few months. It took us a couple of tries to find someone we were both comfortable with. We both completely laid down our feelings now. We talked about why she cheated, and honestly, it was very hard to hear. Basically, she was simply curious. She simply wondered what made the guy she cheated with special. Apparently, he slept with another woman in the friend group, and she talked about to my wife, and she got really curious. The alcohol did the rest. She mentioned regret setting as soon as she got back to her senses. As for me, my conditions were to help me feel more secure, but also, they were a way for me to punish my wife. After some sessions, I just can't trust my wife anymore. I realized this when I told her she made my worst fears real. She fucked the guy I was insecure about. We're going through with a divorce. Besides some finances, there's not much to do. We don't own any property together. We're both capable of living without alimony. I think we've already divorced some time ago. We're just making it official.
Ladies and gentlemen, never ever take back a cheater. Stop wasting your time and resources reconciling with someone that has zero respect for you. Another piece of advice is to never take anyone that frequents bars seriously. Gentlemen, pump and dump only. A hoe will always be a hoe, no matter how many years pass. And now for today's second story. Say goodbye to your house and your retirement.
This one is not technically my revenge, but some revenge I got to see up close and take joy from and slightly participate in. The background is most of the story, so this will be a little long. Trigger warning for self-harm. I was in the Navy and stationed on the submarine base in Connecticut. I had a friend I met in boot camp, and we were in the same class for our school, Navy job training. We'll call that friend Bill. Now, Bill wasn't the most physically fit guy. He was short, kind of chubby, and wore glasses. However, Bill was really smart, and as the sonar technician he was meant to be, he would have been amazing. He had a pragmatic way of looking at things I really valued in a friend, and I know it would have made him successful if he had made it out to the fleet. While in school, we had a couple of petty officers that were hard asses. They somehow convinced themselves they were super soldiers, despite the fact that our jobs in that field are really nerd-centric. You get picked for that job because of your math and computer skills, not your deadlift number. Still, they were both all about being fit and working out all the time. We would do physical training 3 times a week, and while most of us could keep up, Bill often fell behind on runs or didn't quite meet what these two idiots believed to be the standard. To be clear, Bill did pass the minimum requirements for fitness, he just didn't go as extreme as these guys. Side note for other Navy vets, he got the MCPON coin for how hard he pushed himself at PT the day he visited. The end result was that they would constantly berate and belittle Bill. They'd call him fat, lazy, and everything else. They'd tell him he should kill himself, you name it. They were always on his ass despite him passing his assessments. At some point, Bill pushed himself too hard and injured his knee. He told these petty officers he was injured and had been seen by the doctor on base. The doc had put him on light duty so the knee could recover. He had the paperwork to back it up. They elected to ignore that and threaten him with kicking him out if he didn't do the workouts. So Bill kept pushing himself, injuring himself more, and his mental health degraded the whole time. In my time in the Navy, you didn't get mental health services really. The only person to talk to like that was the chaplain. For those who don't know, the chaplain is the religious leader, usually a pastor, priest, or rabbi that has signed up as a commissioned officer. Our chaplain was the sweetest little woman you ever met, but as a chaplain, she held the rank of captain, a high-ranking officer. So Bill set up a meeting with the chaplain to talk about things. When Bill informed the petty officers he would be missing class the next day for his chaplain meeting, they yelled at and berated him more. They called him a pussy, useless, not fit for the Navy, and everything else you can imagine. They convinced Bill he was being weak and the chaplain wouldn't care about his issues, that nobody would care. They promised to make life even harder if he didn't show up the next day, so he canceled his meeting. Evidently, bad luck hit, and that night his girlfriend was also breaking it off with him. She wasn't worth his time or money, but he couldn't see that. That night I awoke to a 3 a.m. call from Bill. I couldn't hear anything and I asked several times, "Bill, you there? Are you okay?" It wouldn't have been the first time that I got a drunk dial from one of my friends after a hard day like Bill had. Sailors have been known to drown their sorrows a bit. Eventually I figured it was a drunk dial and hung up and went back to bed. I still regret that decision. The next day, all hell broke loose. Me and a couple of other friends got calls from Bill's now ex-girlfriend, informing us he was in the hospital because he slit his own throat. Turned out a few of us got that 3 a.m. call, but Bill couldn't speak at the time and was kind of out of it due to blood loss. We finished what we had to do on base and rushed over to the hospital. As we got there, the chaplain was on her way out and we passed her in the hallway. She spoke to us briefly to say that Bill would be okay and she wouldn't forget this. I have never seen a look on someone's face that so accurately depicted raw, unfiltered rage. It took us all by surprise because she was such a small, sweet, and personable lady. But the look in her eyes, you could just tell she wanted someone to pay for this. She wanted revenge, and we all knew she wore the kind of rank that could get it done. We visited Bill, who could barely talk, but he told us the story of what had happened, what he was thinking at the time, and how glad he was it didn't work. Apparently, it was cold enough that the blood clotted on the outside of his neck and made a kind of patch that kept him alive long enough for the EMS to find him and take him to a hospital. The doctor said he missed his carotid by about a millimeter. A week went by and we hadn't heard anything until we got called in by the chief of the training command, the boss to these petty officers. He said he wanted to check on the rest of us and make sure there weren't any other issues with these guys he wasn't aware of, that we were all okay. I let him know about an ass-chewing he gave me a few months back, that I was really set up by these guys and they had lied to him. My friends cited a couple other examples of their own with these guys being generally shitty, dishonest people. I don't think it mattered. I think their fates were already sealed and we were being asked for more ammo to bury them with. The next day, they were nowhere to be found and we were introduced to new instructors who would be taking over our training permanently. After class, I decided to stop by and ask the chaplain what happened. She told me she had never been more disgusted by the actions of a sailor more than these two guys who convinced someone not to come see her. She teared up a bit, regretting that she didn't get the chance to help Bill before he made his attempt. In her mind, it was these two that precipitated and enabled Bill's attempt. So on to the revenge. The chaplain told me she went to the admiral in charge of the entire base and demanded their immediate discharge. He granted it. Both petty officers were immediately processed out with dishonorable discharges. I can't remember the exact charge. I heard they cited for it, but I know the Navy has a way of selling BS on paper when they want a certain outcome, especially officers at that high level. So basically they get no VA benefits of any kind, got kicked out of the base housing they lived in, and could probably only find work at a gas station or under the table stuff somewhere. Also, I know from someone else who got the boot that the Navy only pays for a single bus ticket to get you back home, not your family or any of your belongings. When you have a discharge like that, no company with DoD contracts is allowed to hire you. That includes McDonald's because they have stores on bases throughout the country. Taco Bell, Subway, none of them will give you a job. They can't and they don't want to anyway. So I don't know where these guys went or what become of them, but I know their lives were irrevocably ruined. One of them had about 18 years in, so he was 2 years from retirement and lost it all. The other was at about 12 years, so he also lost a lot. Wherever they are now, I'd be very surprised to hear they're making more than minimum wage. As for Bill, while he made a full recovery, he got a full medical discharge, which is an honorable discharge that meant E5 pay for the rest of his life, full benefits, and a referral to a counselor in his home state once he got back there. All paid for by the Navy. We lost touch over the years, but I did see on Facebook he got himself together, became a police officer, and got married. Edit to add, for those who have pointed it out, their discharges were actually OTH, but I didn't want to have to explain the difference or have people Google it. We always use dishonorable colloquially for OTH or BCD because they all mean you got the boot and your life is gonna suck. But no, they didn't do full CM or any brig time, but I did hear they pushed it to ASB and lost. Also saw someone pointed out Bill wouldn't get the medical at 100% for his neck. That's also true, he wouldn't have, but they wrote it up for his knee because it was basically bone on bone inside. I think they decided to do him a favor and not put him down as a mental health discharge.
Yes, Another classic example of powerless dickheads pretending they are important. I'm assuming they are now harassing some poor cashier at McDonald's and kept spouting they are veterans that deserve a free Big Mac. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.